Alex Beard, Bad Wolf Costumes, author of the Star Trek Costume Guide, and in this video I have a special treat for you. I have with me here an original screen-used TNG skant. How cool is that? And what I'm going to do is give you a sort of video tour of this costume because it has to be seen to be believed. I mean, just looking at it, you might not think that it's that complicated, but let me tell you, this thing is bizarre. I'll show you the inside of it in a bit, and you can see just how weird and out of the box its construction is. Par for the course for William Ware Tice, right? But before we start, two things. First, I want to thank Steve Barnes, who actually owns this screen-used skant, for letting me examine it and for making this video possible. Second, I have documented this thing as thoroughly as I possibly can. I have measured every edge, every nook and cranny of this thing, and taken a bazillion photos. Now, I've written a proper costume analysis of the TNG skant, which has a lot of those photos in it, and you can read it for free on the Star Trek Costume Guide. It's also available as a free PDF download, but what I've also done is I've made the entire library of photos available for viewing on the blog, and you can even download them all as a zip file. Now, as if that weren't enough, I have an extra special treat for those of you who stick around to the end of the video. I guess you could always skip ahead, but why would you do that? This thing is so weird. So let's take a look at it. All right, everybody, grab your bark bags. We're going handheld for just a minute. Just kind of walk you around the mannequin. I'm also talking from behind the camera with a directional microphone, so I hope you can hear me okay. So, of course, this is made out of jumbo spandex. I'll zoom in. Let you see the fabric. But the yoke piping and the neckline piping are not jumbo spandex. Not entirely sure what it is. It looks like another kind of spandex, maybe. But it's a lot thinner than the jumbo spandex, and if you look closely, the colors don't quite match. We'll come back to that shortly, though. I'm talking really loud because I don't know if the microphone will pick me up while I'm standing behind it. So anyway, you can see that the yoke extends onto the sleeve. It's all one piece. There's not an upper arm's eye, per se. And a particularly nice touch is how well these seams line up. Right there, the front, the side, the sleeve, at that yoke seam. And the back's basically the same way. Handheld with the bright lights. Going all J.J. Abrams on you guys. So kind of the same thing in the back with those seams. See how they line up nicely at that intersection. So that's pretty cool. Now, two of the most common questions about this thing are how do you get in and out of it? And what the hell is that assembly down underneath in the skirt? And we'll cover the closure in just a minute, but I'll first show you down here. See, there's a vent on the lower right of the front. And under the vent, it's not a pleat. It's not a pleat. It's a full-on proper vent. Separate pieces. But under the vent, there... Oh my! Starfleet nightlife on the Federation flagship. So you see there's this kind of half panty assembly. What it is this side panel wraps underneath the leg and snaps into a matching but opposite piece on the back. And then above that, there's another piece that's sewn on that is anchored to the side seam on the opposite side. So it looks kind of like this. Underneath that vent. Now on the back, oh, my knees. Dang, someone's been busy. Tell you what, Kirk was born in the wrong century. But the universe made up for it by giving the ladies Riker. So you can see this piece wraps around the back left leg and snaps to the part that wrapped around the front right. And there's also that same panel that's sewn on and extends right from there all the way up to the side seam on that side. And so underneath the vent on both the front and the back, there's this weird thing, and as best I can tell, it was to keep the skant from pulling up too far, like when you raise your hands while you're wearing it or something. It just kind of held it down. It's my best guess anyway. So now let's talk about how to get in and out of this thing. First of all, there is a pair of hook and eye closures right at the center front. So you undo those, and then there's a zipper right along this upper right seam. Let me zoom out. So there's that. And it goes to here. And then there is another pair of hook and eye closures right here. So you want to undo these. And interestingly, these eyes are just thread. It's just a loop of thread. They're not the usual metal eyes that you'd see like up here, or on most of the other modern era Star Trek costumes. It's just two little thread eyes right there. So you undo that. This is where it gets weird. Just undo the rest of that zipper. You see how it was tucked in there, like that. So pull that out, and now along this seam there's another invisible zipper. Pull it out, unzip that. That'll go all the way down to the top of the vent. So, how do you get in and out of the TNG skant? Well, like that, of course. How else would you do it? Alright, I put the skant on the mannequin inside out so you can better see how this thing looks on the underside. So here are the upper closures. Here's that horizontal zipper. You see it goes a little past the seam. So does this one. There's a vertical zipper. There's that hook and eye closure underneath. Down, 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 down. It looks like whoever installed the zipper is having a bit of a hard time following that curve. Understandable. Either that or whoever finally ended up wearing it needed it to be taken in a little bit. And then down, down, down. And here's the lower interior assembly. So there's this piece that actually starts 4 inches above the bottom of the zipper, 4 inches above the top of the vent. Then we have this sewn on piece that's attached all the way over on the other side seams. And down at the bottom we have the piece that straps between the legs, like that. And then same thing on the back. You can see these seam allowances were actually pressed upward. Anyway, I'm down, down, down. Oh, my knees again. Goodness. So here's that back assembly. Again, starting above the vent. On down. Then here's the piece that meets that front piece between the legs. So that's how it looks inside out. Here's the original tag. I assume it's the original tag. Got our shoulder pads here. Look at the size of these things. Oh my goodness. Definitely a product of the 80s for sure. Actually measured, this pad is 7.5 inches from end to end and 6.5 inches across at its widest point here. It's actually not that tall, it's just really wide surface area. You can see the pads are sewn in to the shoulder seams there. So they're actually permanently attached, not attached with snaps or Velcro like a lot of the later costumes, where you can see the little communicator Velcro was top stitched. So yeah, there it is, inside out. Truly bizarre. You know, probably the first thought that went through my mind when I first saw this thing was, oh my god, that's the color? I'm not an expert in color, but I did not expect it to be this orange. It looks so gold on the show, but it looks so orange in person, and Flash just brings out the orange even more. And I wanted to color match it for you. I didn't have any color charts handy, you know, like a Pantone chart. I had a few fiber reactive dye charts handy, but that's not all that useful for jumbo spandex. So I just grabbed some thread that was the closest match to it that I could find. Let me zoom in here. So this is Gutermann number 561, color 561. Camera doesn't want to focus. Oh, there it goes. Right here. So that's a really close match. You can see how orange this is. There was another color that was a pretty close match. It's actually a jeans thread, color 2030. Oops. It's not quite as good a match. It's still pretty good though. At least the best I could find at the store. So the other one's better. Color 561, approximate color reference. Next time you're going to pick up thread, look at that. That'll give you an idea of what the actual gold color is. Now, interestingly, that color does not match the yoke piping. So here's 561. You see, that doesn't match much at all. But look how good it looks on the body fabric. It's not perfect, it's close. So I color matched as best I could. I didn't find a color that was the color of that piping, but Gutermann color 875 was the closest that I found. I'll show you here. It's a decent color match for the piping. Again, not perfect, but it's the closest that I found. And when you see these two together, They look pretty close. You know, the piping's more yellow. But I'll show you these two spools of thread side by side. So, that's a thing. So anyway, color is wild. And one thing I meant to mention earlier was the fabric is jumbo spandex, of course, but the dull side is used as the exterior of the garment, as the right side. You see the shiny side is underneath. And here's another look at that sort of, whatever the hell you want to call this, half panty assembly or whatever. So the side is all one piece all the way down, and then it kind of turns into this sort of L shape down here. And then this piece is a separate sewn-on piece. And actually this piece right here has been stabilized with some 1/4 inch black twill tape. You can see a double row of stitching down there. It's pretty easy to find. Just you can use some off-the-shelf Wright's twill tape. You can get 4 yards of it, the 1/4 inch stuff, for like a couple dollars. I'll show you this twill tape, the Wright's, next to this. So it's a bit shinier. Who cares? It's just to stabilize. It's just to keep this curved edge from stretching out of shape. At least that's my assumption. And then the snaps down here are the same size as the Dritz size 4. Show you here. Hope you can see that okay. And something I noticed, for all you people obsessed with accuracy, on the back, I don't know if this is a repair or how it was originally done, you can see this hole of the snap was actually done in blue thread, and the other 3 were done in black thread. Then all of these were done with blue thread. So, screen accurate. You gotta do it in blue thread. Anyway, on the back, you have the stay tape too, on that curved edge. You can see the seam allowance was edge stitched, and then this upper edge was turned under, stitched too. Man, camera does not like to focus on shiny side of the jumbo spandex. So anyway, let me flip this thing inside out. We'll take a look at the inside. Okay, so here we are with the skant inside out. See how massive these shoulder pads are. Here's the biggest commercially available shoulder pad that I know of. And look how it just gets dwarfed by the screen use pad. It looks like it's a custom made pad. It looks like it's made out of lining with some padding in the middle, maybe cotton, I don't know. And the raglan shape is achieved with this little dart in the pad right here on both sides. And then it's sewn twice around the perimeter, and then the edges were cut with pinking shears. So it looks like a custom-made pad. I imagine it would be. But then again, maybe in the 80s, you know, you could buy these regularly. Who knows? So you can see the, let me move it. The neckline piping here has been catch stitched to the underside of the yoke with orange thread. It makes more sense to use black thread though. I don't know why they didn't, because no one's ever going to see the stitching right here because it's only going through the piping layers. But this teeny little stitch right here where you catch just a thread of the yoke, you're risking that being seen. You think you'd want to do that with black thread, because at least a little black speck wouldn't be all that visible, but a little gold speck would. So who knows, you know? And the yoke piping here, you can see the seam allowance was trimmed out. Little sandwich there, pressed upward. Of course, the front yoke body seam allowances were pressed open, but then the back ones were pressed up. I don't know why. I just don't question these things anymore. These Star Trek costumes, so much weird stuff. And of course, these seam allowances were pressed open for the, or I don't know if they were pressed, but they're open for the zipper. But then on this side, they're pressed towards the front and actually sewn in that way. Same on the back. You can see these seam lines between the back and the side back are pressed towards the back. But the side seams are pressed open. And the side seams are bigger too, probably to allow it to be fitted if it needed to be. You can see the sleeves are hemmed with a catch stitch. And that's a 1-inch hem allowance on those sleeves. And they're pretty short. The whole sleeve is only 2 inches from the bottom of the yoke and the bottom of the armscye, or armpit. If you look down here, here's again what that interior assembly looks like. So you can see this is all one piece. And for the zipper in the front, you actually have to cut a slit in this piece to get that seam allowance to fold over. And I'll show you here. On this side of the zipper, you can see up here, we have 1/2 inch, even 5/8 inch seam allowance. But as you go, once you hit this vent, that seam allowance tapers down to about 1/4 inch. Told you this thing was weird. The black had 1.5 inch hem allowance all the way around, but the gold has a hem allowance of 1 3/4 of an inch that tapers down to 1.5 inches towards the side seam. And actually this front vent has a hem allowance of 2 inches up top, and it tapers to a wider hem allowance of 2 1/4 inches at bottom. But the back one is 2 1/4 inches all the way down. Yes, I measured I measured every nook and cranny of this thing, like I said. So, you know, that's unusual. And actually, the black piece, the side panel, is a little bit shorter when you measure it from the front. It's about 1/2 inch shorter than the gold piece. Or was it 3/4 of an inch? I don't know. It's a little bit shorter. Like that. And the back looks the exact same way, except no zipper, obviously. So you can see the seam where the front and side panels were joined, and then there's the top stitch right here above the vent. And of course the vent is catch stitched all the way down, as is the hem allowance. And just like with the front, we have 1 3/4 inches of hem allowance. The taper's down to 1.5 inches. So, like I said, this thing is so weird. And then the side seam allowance is pressed open. This thing is bizarre. You can see up here what that intersection looks like, with all these various panels converging. And you can also see these little stitches that kind of taper off here. I think they're just reinforcement that whoever made this got as close as they could and then just kind of veered off like that. They don't seem to be doing anything other than just holding the seam allowances together. So my only guess is that they're for reinforcement. Who knows? And also note that the shoulder pad is only sewn on up to about right there. It's not sewn on all the way down onto the sleeve. It's just sewn on to about right there. Here's the tag. 36402. I have no idea what the 402 means unless it was some labeling by the costume department. 36, I measured. The bust on this is actually a 36, or 36 inches rather, and it's a little weird. Normally women's sizing is, like 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and men's sizes are normally, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So I wonder if the costume department originally labeled it by size for the women's versions instead of using typical women's sizing. Who knows? And now, as promised, an extra special treat. I patterned this skant in all its wonderful weirdness. Every piece, including the shoulder pads. I patterned it using a technique that I learned in this book, 101 Sewing Secrets, from the Singer Sewing Reference Library. I'll put a link to it down below for those of you who want to expand your sewing bag of tricks. This particular one is unfortunately titled the rub-off technique. So yeah, I had a damn good rub-off from this TNG skant. Anyway, the pattern I derived from it, I'm putting on the Star Trek costume guide where you can download it for free. The pages are pretty big. They're large format engineering prints, so you'll probably have to have it printed at your local copy and print shop, but it's there on the blog for you to check out for free. Now, this is a women's skant pattern, and I'll put the specific measurements up on the blog, so if you're a woman about this size, then perfect, you're good to go. If you're a different size or you want to make the men's version, and you're experienced and very brave, you can use it as a base to alter the pattern so it fits you. Or, if you're using the Bad Wolf Costumes TNG skant pattern, you can download it while you're waiting for your pattern to arrive and use it for practice. Whatever you want to use it for, it's there on the blog for you along with all of the other resources that I mentioned earlier. There's a link down below, or you can check it out at www.startrekcostumeguide.com.